They wrote it down as a warning, not a celebration, the kind of record etched in cold ink after too many bodies had already fallen. In the shifting battleground where ambition and alchemy collide, Ling Han stands at the center of a storm he did not start, yet cannot escape. The alliances forged in silence are beginning to fracture, and those who once watched from the shadows now step forward with blades drawn and intentions laid bare. Alchemy Emperor of the Divine Dao, chapter 1655 to 1656, the fragile balance of power teeters as hidden forces tighten their grip. Every decision carries weight, every glance conceals calculation, and even the air seems to hum with restrained violence. What was once a contest of strength is becoming something far more dangerous, a test of resolve, cunning, and the price one is willing to pay for supremacy. The question is no longer who will rise, but who will still be standing when the dust finally settles. Ling Han paused at the river's edge, his gaze stretching into the distance where the waters carved a winding path through the land. The currents whispered of urgency, yet the road ahead was anything but simple. Rather than waste precious time in prolonged negotiations with every tribe guarding the river's course, he made a swift decision. He would take a detour, but reality quickly dismantled that plan. As they advanced into the middle stretch of the river, the terrain revealed its true nature. On one side lay a narrow, elongated plain hugging the riverbank, while towering mountains loomed like silent guardians on the other. The plain itself was already occupied by various tribes, each claiming dominion over their territory. If Ling Han wished to avoid them, he would have to venture into the mountains. Yet those peaks were no gentle refuge. Treacherous paths twisted endlessly, forcing travelers into long, exhausting detours. Worse still, the mountains were home to terrifying demonic beasts, creatures that had reached the peak of Saint King level. Crossing such a region would not only cost time, but could easily cost lives. And more importantly, the tribes by the river were not fools. They lived along the river precisely to control its flow, to ensure no one could bypass them and gain access to the waters upstream. Allowing others to slip through alternative paths would undermine their dominance. Such leniency would never be granted. Ling Han exhaled slowly. There was no choice. They would have to walk the river path and face whatever stood in their way. Before proceeding, he turned to Xiao Gu, his expression stern. No matter what happens, do not imitate anyone's speech. The warning carried weight. In front of saint-level elites mocking their words, even unintentionally, could easily be taken as provocation, and Xiao Gu had been improving far too quickly in that regard. Its speech had become fluid, almost eerily so, repeating words without pause, as though it were born to mimic. Xiao Gu tilted its head, seemingly understanding, though whether it would obey was another matter entirely. Soon, they arrived before the first tribe of the middle course, the Yui tribe. A vast formation shimmered into existence before them. Its power surged like a living tide, rooted in the great river itself. The formation drew its strength from the flowing waters, perfectly aligned with the unique cultivation system of this land. It was something entirely foreign to Ling Han, a system unlike anything he had studied before. Everything he had learned about formations was useless here. If he wanted to pass, there was only one option: brute force. "All of you, stay behind me," Ling Han said calmly. The formation's strength was comparable to an early-stage Saint King. For the heavenly phoenix Divine Maiden and the others, it was an insurmountable wall. As for Xiao Gu, it was better if it did not act. If it revealed too much strength, negotiations would become meaningless. They would be forced into constant battles, and worse, alert every tribe along the river. Long Xiangyue had already retreated into the spatial god tool. The remaining four followed closely behind Ling Han, with Xiao Gu bringing up the rear like a silent guardian. Ling Han stepped forward and raised his palm. With a single motion, he struck. The formation split apart. It was as if the river itself had been torn open, revealing a path through the surging currents. Ling Han walked forward unhurriedly, his presence forcing the violent energy of the formation to retreat. Though the power raged mere feet away, it could not touch them, like waves parting before an unyielding cliff. The heavenly phoenix Divine Maiden and the others watched in awe. The destructive force of the formation howled around them, Yet they remained untouched, walking through it as though sheltered by an invisible barrier. Then a voice echoed directly into their minds. "Humph, who dares trespass into the Yue tribe?" Ling Han smiled faintly. "Friend, we merely wish to pass through. Please grant us your understanding." There was a pause. "Outsiders," the voice murmured, as if weighing something carefully. After a moment, it spoke again, more firmly. "You may travel along the river, but do not stray from the path. If you enter deeper into our tribe's territory, do not blame us for our ruthlessness." The meaning was clear. They were being allowed to pass. Ling Han nodded slightly, understanding the unspoken truth behind the decision. It was not kindness, but strength. The power he had displayed was enough to make the other party reconsider unnecessary conflict. Without such strength, their words would have been meaningless. He did not say this aloud. Such things were best left unspoken. As he continued forward, he noticed the pressure of the formation weakening. Clearly, the Yue tribe expert had deliberately lessened its power as a gesture of goodwill. "Many thanks, friend," Ling Han said. There was no reply. Silence lingered. 15 minutes later they emerged from the formation. Before them stretched a boundless plain, vast and open. Though still within Yue tribe territory, there was no protective formation here. After all, the formation's purpose was to guard against threats from downstream tribes, not from within. Beyond this land lay the domain of the next tribe, whose formation would, in turn, defend against the Yue tribe itself. Ling Han stopped and turned to Xiao Gu, smiling. "You did well this time." Xiao Gu blinked, then suddenly, "Humph! Who dares trespass into the Yue tribe?" "Friend, we merely wish to." It began mimicking the earlier exchange, repeating both Ling Han's words and the Yue tribe expert's voice with uncanny accuracy. Ling Han had barely begun to speak before Xiao Gu eagerly echoed everything. The heavenly phoenix divine maiden and the others burst into laughter. It seemed Xiao Gu had been restraining itself with great effort earlier, and now it could no longer hold back. After finishing its imitation, Xiao Gu looked at them blankly, tilting its head. Why were they laughing? Then, as if catching on, "Yaya!" it laughed foolishly as well. The group continued onward. After a full day's journey, another formation appeared before them. Once again, Ling Han led the charge. This time, it was the territory of the Tong tribe. Fortunately, the expert guarding the formation had no desire to fight. After a few polite words from Ling Han, they were allowed to pass. However, unlike the Yue tribe, this person showed no particular goodwill. The formation's power was not reduced. It simply ignored their presence, as though they did not exist. Still, it was enough. Their journey continued smoothly. But when they finally reached the upper course, everything changed. The moment they stepped into the next formation, a sharp voice thundered through the air. "Scram!" Ling Han frowned. From the very first word, hostility poured forth like a blade drawn without warning. The tribes of the upper course were far more domineering. "Friend, we only seek passage," Ling Han replied calmly. "I told you to scram. Are you deaf?" The voice snapped, filled with provocation. Ling Han's eyes narrowed. "I do not know how to scram. Forgive me for failing to comply." He stepped forward. "Insolence!" the voice roared. Boom! The formation erupted with terrifying force. From its depths, a monstrous beast materialized, a colossal lion-like creature with twin horns and 9 writhing tails. It lunged toward them with savage intent. Ling Han flicked a finger. Sword chi burst forth like a streak of lightning, splitting the beast cleanly in half. Yet the creature did not fall. Instead, its 2 halves twisted and transformed into 2 separate beasts, each just as ferocious as before. "Ah!" the voice rang out with cruel delight. "This is the 10,000 manifestations' great formation. The more you resist, the stronger it becomes. You are courting death." There was hatred in that laughter, deep, seething hatred toward outsiders. "Despicable outsiders, all of you will die." Ling Han's expression turned cold. He extended his divine sense, pushing it through the raging currents of the formation. Though its power gnawed at his spirit, his divine sense was unyielding, pressing forward without hesitation. Soon he found the source. A burly man stood at the heart of the formation, wearing a feathered crown, his upper body bare. Around him, 9 black rings shimmered, the 9th not yet fully formed, a middle-stage great saint. "Humph!" the man sneered. "You dare probe me with your divine sense? Are you so eager to die?" He clenched his fist and struck. Ling Han immediately withdrew his divine sense, his gaze sharpening like a drawn blade. "I will come find you myself," he said coldly. And with that, the true confrontation was about to begin. Ling Han did not hesitate. With a calm yet resolute expression, he turned his body and strode toward the towering man who commanded the formation ahead. His movements were like a streak of lightning cutting across the battlefield, so swift that even the heavenly phoenix Divine Maiden and the others struggled to keep pace behind him. As he advanced, his fists moved like meteors crashing down from the heavens. Each punch carried overwhelming force, shattering every fierce beast that dared leap toward him. Yet with every beast destroyed, the formation responded with chilling persistence. More and more creatures emerged, as if drawn from an endless abyss. At first, the number of beasts was manageable, but as they multiplied into the hundreds, their collective power surged. Each one possessed the strength of an early-stage Saint King. When gathered in such numbers, their combined might rivaled that of a peak-stage Saint King. Even Ling Han, formidable as he was, began to exert greater effort. And still, the tide did not stop. Far in the distance, the bare-chested man controlling the formation watched with a cold, mocking smile. In his eyes, Ling Han's advance was nothing more than reckless arrogance. How foolish, he sneered inwardly. Charging headlong like that, before reaching even a third of the distance, he should have been torn apart like prey surrounded by wolves. But what unfolded before him began to shake that certainty. Ling Han pressed forward relentlessly. One step, another. His fists carved a path through the storm of beasts. It was not until he had traversed nearly 4/5 of the distance that the endless tide finally engulfed him, forming a dense ocean of monstrous figures that blocked his path completely. "Ha!" The large man burst into laughter, unable to contain his scorn. "I have never seen someone so foolish." He knew the secret of this formation well. It was not meant to be broken through brute force. The more one attacked, the more beasts would appear. The true method of survival was restraint. Lower one's cultivation, refrain from attacking, and endure defensively. Only then could one find a path out. But such restraint came at a cost. The formation's guardian would seize that moment of weakness and strike mercilessly. It was a cruel dilemma. Unleash your strength and be drowned in endless enemies, or hold back and be crushed by the guardian. Yet Ling Han ignored all of it. He did not slow, he did not hesitate. Punch after punch rained down, each one destroying another beast, each destruction giving birth to even more. The heavenly phoenix Divine Maiden and the others exchanged uneasy glances. Was he inviting disaster? The battlefield became a sea of chaos. Tens of thousands of beasts now filled the area. Though they could not all strike at once, waves of hundreds, even thousands, surged forward together. It was enough to make even the strongest cultivator falter. But then, something changed. When Ling Han shattered yet another beast, its body exploded into fragments as before. But instead of reforming instantly into new creatures, the remnants dissolved into clusters of black energy. These swirling masses trembled, struggling to take shape, yet failing to do so. At the same time, the countless beasts already present began to falter. Their movements grew sluggish, unsteady, as if intoxicated. The heavenly phoenix Divine Maiden and the others stared in astonishment. What was happening? Ling Han finally stopped. His gaze was steady, his voice calm, yet filled with quiet authority. "Whether it is a formation or a living being," he said, "everything has a limit. No matter how great the potential, once it is pushed beyond its boundary, it will collapse. A formation is no different." As if answering his words, thunder roared across the sky. Boom! The entire formation trembled violently. Cracks spread through its invisible structure like fractures in glass. One by one, the fierce beasts exploded into nothingness. The great formation had reached its limit and shattered. Ling Han, though unfamiliar with this particular system, was a master of formations. He understood their nature deeply. All formations, regardless of origin, shared one truth. They could not exceed their limits. Once pushed beyond that threshold, destruction was inevitable. With a final deafening crash, the formation collapsed entirely. The battlefield cleared, revealing the stunned figure of the large man in the distance. His expression was one of utter disbelief. Though he had heard Ling Han's explanation, it brought him no clarity, only deeper shock. In his eyes, Ling Han was no longer human. He was something monstrous. Ling Han stepped forward and casually reached out, seizing the man and dragging him closer as if pulling in prey. "Tell me," Ling Han said with a faint smile, "did something happen to you before? Why such hatred for outsiders?" The man's face flushed red instantly, a mixture of anger and humiliation flickering across his features. Ling Han paused, then burst into laughter. It seemed his guess had struck the truth. "Stop laughing!" the man roared, lunging forward with desperate fury, as if willing to risk everything in a final strike, but the difference in strength was too vast. With a simple downward press of his hand, Ling Han forced the man flat onto the ground, limbs spread wide, utterly restrained. "Let me go!" the man shouted defiantly. "You will all die if you don't. This is Zhao tribe territory." His arrogance stemmed from confidence. This land was ruled by his tribe, home to powerful elites whose strength far surpassed his own. Ling Han merely smiled. "Even now you still act so boldly," he said lightly. "It seems you haven't suffered enough." Then, turning to the Heavenly Phoenix, Divine Maiden, and Long Yushan, he added, "You two, look away." The Heavenly Phoenix, Divine Maiden, obeyed without hesitation. Long Yushan, however, blinked in confusion. "Why?" Before she could receive an answer, a sharp flick of Ling Han's finger sent a burst of energy outward. With a crisp sound, the man's remaining clothing was torn apart completely. Long Yushan gasped and immediately turned away, her face burning red with embarrassment. The man himself was utterly mortified, his face turning ashen. "What are you doing?" he shouted, both furious and humiliated beyond measure. Ling Han glanced at him calmly, his expression almost thoughtful, as if making an observation. Even Xiao Gu echoed his remark innocently. The man nearly lost consciousness from the humiliation. Being exposed like this was already unbearable, but being mocked on top of it was far worse. To him, this felt even more cruel than the earlier incident he had suffered. Ling Han chuckled softly. "So," he said, his tone turning sharp, "are you willing to answer now? Or should I hang you at your tribe's entrance and let everyone admire you properly?" "No!" the man cried out immediately, panic overtaking his pride. "Then answer honestly," Ling Han said. "How many outsider groups have come here?" "Just one," the man replied quickly, all resistance gone. "Who were they?" "There were many, over 100 people." "Explain everything." Under pressure, the man recounted everything in detail. Only then did Ling Han learn that 4.5 years ago, the Empress and her companions had passed through this place. Alongside them were Saint Kings from the Forbidden Lands and younger cultivators, over 100 in total. Among them was that troublesome black dog. Just like Ling Han's group, they had advanced smoothly at first, only to be stopped here. The dog had even caused trouble, sneaking into the formation and biting a chunk of flesh from this very man. In the end, after negotiations, the group had been allowed to pass, but that incident left the man with deep resentment toward all outsiders. Now, encountering Ling Han's group, he had seized the chance to make things difficult, only to suffer yet another humiliating defeat. Just as the story concluded, a powerful aura surged from the distance. "Eliminate these outsiders," a voice thundered. Figures descended rapidly, experts of the Zhao tribe, their gazes sharp and filled with hostility as they surrounded Ling Han and his companions. The tension in the air thickened like a storm about to break.